today we are going to give a reaction to animated video. Actually, it's a true story animated.
Stressful enough, my dad got himself fired and we had to move to a new city so he could find a new job. It wouldn't have been so bad, except Dad was a teacher at my school, so everyone knew what he'd done. It was one of the worst things to happen to us since Mom died when I was 12. But this time, it was all Dad's fault.
So what? You are a teacher in this school. What did you do?
I could have stayed at this school and finished my exams. But let's be honest, I'd never live it down. I lasted about 3 days before I went to the principal and told him I was leaving. He didn't even look at me. He just said, "You should be ashamed of your dad. Get out of my school." When I was emptying out my locker, one guy came up to me and said that me and my dad were a disgrace, and I shouldn't show my face in this town again. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. So Dad and I packed up and moved, leaving our old life behind. I was miserable at first. The video was still viral, and I even thought about asking Dad if I could change my surname to Mom's old name, just so I wouldn't have to be associated with it all. Dad couldn't find a job anywhere.
Of course, no one will hire them.
Everyone recognized him from the video, and some newspapers had written about it too. It was a nightmare. I knew I'd have to start at a new school so I could sit my final exams, so I decided to try and disguise myself. I cut my long hair into a pixie cut and bleached it blonde. Then I got my nose pierced. On the first day, Dad offered to drive me, but I told him I'd walk, just in case anyone recognized him. I knew I was being mean to him, but I didn't care. He'd ruined my reputation, and I wasn't about to let him do it again. As I was walking to school, I wasn't paying attention, and I bumped into a young guy. "Hey, watch it," he said. "I'm blind." I apologized, then looked back at him. Wow, I'd never have known he was blind. And then I got an idea. I reached into my bag and put on my sunglasses, and then when I got closer to the school, I held onto the wall and walked alongside it slowly.
Oh yeah, she act as she blind. OMG, is this even legal?
And a girl came up to me and introduced herself as Elsie and took me by the arm and offered to help me walk to class. She said her brother was blind too, so she knew how difficult it could be sometimes. Well, too late now. I'd started this, so I just have to play along. I mean, how hard could it be? I told her I was new around here and this was my first day. She seemed so excited. She started describing things to me, like where the girls' bathroom was.
Oh, she's really helpful. She helped
us. And then she took me to register, and I was so sure the principal would know I was lying. But it seemed this school took disability seriously. For the first time in ages, I felt like people actually cared about me. Elsie was assigned as my guide, and that first morning passed in a blur. When she introduced me to her boyfriend at lunch, I had to stop myself from staring at him. He was such a babe. But then I realized I could stare all I wanted because he obviously thought I couldn't see him. And then when we went to the bathroom, Elsie didn't even close the door. It was pretty awkward, but what could I do? Surely someone would catch me out. And yup, sure enough, in the afternoon, things went downhill. Elsie dropped me off at the classroom for people with special needs, and then she just left me there. I looked around me and realized people there seriously had proper disabilities and learning difficulties. I wanted to scream that I was a fraud and run out, but the teacher came over to me and gave me a hug, and I was reminded why I was doing this. Anything to avoid being the girl whose dad got fired because of an affair. But then she put a book in front of me, and I realized it was Braille, and my heart almost stopped. How was I supposed to know what this book was about? I had no clue how to read it.
Of course it will be a Braille book. What do you think before you act as blind?
I had to get out of there. I told her I wasn't feeling very well, and then I reached out to grab onto the chair in front of me so I could feel my way out of the classroom. But I didn't even realize how hard I'd pulled it, or the fact there was someone sitting in it. And the next moment, the chair was falling on top of me, and then a girl fell onto the floor. I just lay there trying not to cry. How had I not seen her sitting there? This whole faking being blind thing was starting to mess with me. Then it got worse. She landed on her arm and broke it. She was actually blind, which made me feel so bad. And no one was even angry with me because they all assumed I couldn't see. The teacher ordered an ambulance for the blind girl and offered to call my parents to pick me up, and I panicked and said my dad was sick and my mom had passed away years ago. The teacher felt so bad for me and said I could rest in her office until the end of the day, and then she'd drive me home. I sat in the teacher's office and waited, and then eventually I decided to leave without her noticing. I left a note thanking her for looking after me. I wrote it with my left hand, of course, so it would look realistic, and then I snuck out. Everyone was in class, so I just walked out of there like normal and headed home. When I got home, Dad was in a good mood. He'd got a job interview and he had a
Oh, congratulations, Dad.
date that night. I just ignored him and went to my room. What a crazy first day. The next day, Elsie was waiting for me at the gate, and I had to pretend I didn't see her and walk straight past her, but she grabbed my hand and helped me to class again. Then my teacher was there to welcome me, and she said she had some exciting news, that seeing as I was 18 and blind, and my dad was sick, I could claim some benefits to help me out.
Some benefits? So I think this is illegal.
I couldn't believe it. Jackpot. Maybe being blind wasn't so bad after all. That morning I had gym class, which I wasn't expecting. I thought another perk of being blind would be that I got to skip sports and stuff. But no, it was so humiliating. It was a swimming class. The gym teacher gave me a swimsuit and I put it on backwards, thinking that would be more realistic. But our special needs department teacher rolled her eyes at me and said that by now surely I knew how to dress myself. She'd been so nice to me up until now. I didn't get it. After school, I decided to go check out the mall. I wore my sunglasses in case anyone from school saw me. Anyway, the mall was pretty lame, so I bought a milkshake and decided to leave. I looked right at him and he froze and opened his mouth to say something. Then I heard him whisper under his breath, "Never mind, she's blind. Phew." Except I wasn't blind, mister, and you have officially been caught in the act. I looked her up on Instagram and sent her a private message with the photo. She replied straight away saying, "Who is this? Why are you trying to ruin my relationship?" And then it clicked. My Instagram handle wasn't my name, and my pic looked nothing like me. Oh yeah, and I was blind. Obviously she didn't know it was me. Well, at least she now knew that her boyfriend was a lying, cheating. Over the next few days, Elsie didn't come to school, and I regretted sending her that photo. If she found out it had been me who sent it, I'd probably have lost my only friend. I could see her boyfriend looking at me in a horrible way, but
Oh, I think now he thought she's not blind.
I just kept my head down. She must have told him someone had seen him that day. Was he on to me? He definitely was, because on Friday afternoon, I saw him going into my locker and taking my phone. It took all my strength not to jump out at him and stop him, but it was too late. He had taken it.
So why the name of it is locker? Because it's lock the thing. But I think he is stealing the locker in the school.
I hurried home wondering what I could do. He'd see all the photos and figure out I'd been faking it. I could report my phone missing, but I had no proof that it was him that had done it. I couldn't exactly say I'd seen him. I just wanted to get home to try and figure out what I'd do next. Except that was not what happened. My dad had invited his date over, and as soon as I walked through the door, he told me to get changed and come join him in the kitchen. Great, just what I needed. I was chopping carrots when she arrived. I turned around as my dad introduced her. "Allison, sweetie, come meet my new girlfriend, Susan."
Oh my God, she's her teacher.
I literally just missed my foot. I dropped the knife right out of my hand and stared in shock. "Oh no, Allison, are you okay? Wow, what a coincidence. You shouldn't be using sharp knives. Come on, Kevin, surely you know better than that," she said. "Hang on, you two know each other?"
Of course they know each other.
My dad said. "Why, yes, of course. I'm Allison's teacher. Why didn't you mention your daughter was blind? I had no idea you were her father. In fact, she told me her father was sick." I stood there, my skin burning with shame. I had to run. This was my absolute worst nightmare. "Allison!" my dad screamed, and that was how I got caught. Susan, my teacher, was so upset with me and said I was a huge disappointment and that she didn't want to be with a man who'd raised a daughter like me. I guess I was just as bad as my dad, like father, like daughter. I wish I could say it all blew over after that and that I went back to school the following Monday and started afresh. Nope, Life doesn't work like that. I was expelled, of course.
Of course they will do this for you.
And that Monday after school, there was a knock at the door. Elsie was standing there, and I held my breath, assuming she was about to go crazy at me. But instead, she just handed me my phone. She said she'd been angry to find out I'd been lying about being blind, especially as her brother was blind, and it wasn't okay to joke about this kind of thing. But then she said I'd saved her from dating a cheater, and she was so grateful.
Oh, she's really good.
She said she'd broken up with her boyfriend and that he'd been suspended for stealing. Sure, I could have saved myself a whole lot of trouble if I hadn't faked being blind. But then would I have discovered that Elsie's ex was bad news? And would Elsie have befriended me in the first place? There were just two small problems. I had to finish school, and I had to find a way to help my dad. He was so depressed about Susan breaking up with him.
I think her dad is crazy.
I plucked up the courage and called Susan and asked if she would meet me so we could chat. She agreed, and when we met, I told her I'd really messed up, but I'd only done it because of what had happened at my last school. I told her my dad had made some stupid choices in the past, and I had too, but he really liked her and deserved a second chance. I said I'd do anything to make it up to her, and begged her to ask the school to let me come back. Well, not only did they let me come back and finish my last year, they even hired my dad. Him and Susan are together now, and Elsie is my best friend.
So guys, at the end of the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.